Right, ladies and gents, it's the 23rd of January, Sunday, 2022, and some of you may appreciate that date, 23rd of January, as on this date in 1974, about a mile or so above where I am now, up on the open mountainside, the Berwyn UFO came down, originally thought to be a crash, but that was pretty much debunked in 2001, 2002 at the latest, and all the subsequent evidence suggests that any notion of a crash was in fact disinformation seeded into the UFO community and the wider public domain, presumably to waylay researchers. Lots of people have actually written about the Berwyn event, even appeared on TV programmes, but unlike them, I'm a bit different, because I've always been an outdoor person. A lot of these people who've commented negatively and positively, I've actually never been anywhere near where the UFO was. Most of them never been more than 50 yards from the cars, standing on the side of the B4391 looking over. Oh, the UFO was over there somewhere. I've always been an outdoor person, naturalist, all that sort of business, hill walker. I'd done wild camping for years. I do survivalism. I'm also known for being a bit of a prepper, and I've been all over these mountains, places where virtually no one goes other than the most hardy hill walkers, and I actually get out in the thick of it. And like my fishing, I'll walk 2 miles, 3 miles across open moorland to fish in a little tiny speck of blue marked on the map. And the same goes for flying saucers. I use that term rather loosely. I'm not really a fan of the word UFO, because if someone looks from the night sky and sees a meteor coming in and doesn't recognise it as a meteor, then it's a UFO, although the word UFO has become synonymous with extraterrestrial vehicles. So there's a lot of interchangeability going on, and I try to be a bit more sort of specific about that. But today, 23rd of January 2022, just for the hell of it, I've decided to do an overnight camp. It's going to be pretty cold tonight, and the problem with camping in the winter, of course, is the nights are long. I'm looking at 14 hours of darkness tonight, max 13 hours certainly, and it starts to go light then, dusk and dawn. But later on I'm going to be up on the hillside in the dark where this craft came down, and whether you choose to believe it or not, whether it crashed, which is not really true, or whether you choose to believe, which I do, that it was a controlled landing, stayed a while in departure, although the military were seemingly involved in that departure. We know where that UFO was on the hillside, and I'll be slap bang in the middle of where that spot is. So I won't ramble on too long. I'm making my way up now. It's all off track now, this forestry track going up here. That'll take me up onto the open hillside. Down the valley there is Llandrillo, about 2.5 miles away. There's no phone signal in this valley, and that's even in this modern age is quite significant. I do get a signal above that tree line up there. Once you're around the top of the valley there, the phone signals come in. So I'll make my way up there now. I've got about 3 hours before full dark. It'll take me about an hour to get up where I want to go, even at my fast pace, and more anon. I'm just not far from where I'm going to pitch up for the night now, but I've just stopped for a breather, and I'll just do a little pan round, give viewers an idea of the terrain here. Basically all this forestry didn't exist in 1974, and if I, where am I? Yeah, if I go there and zoom in there, you see there's a little bit of a valley there, and the B4391 road comes through there, and where that slope comes down from the right hand side, until a car passes the bottom of that slope, if you like, it doesn't have a view across the mountainside here. So the earliest possible moment, nurse Pat Evans and her two daughters, who were credited with discovering the UFO from their viewpoint on the side of that road, that's the earliest they could have seen it. Now if you take into account the hillside there, even without the trees, and if I turn round, the land's up above me here still, and if I turn round there, go a bit further, now there's a hill there, and it's got a little bit of a cairn on. That's on the path to the summit of Cader Berwyn itself, but there's a little bit of a valley here between there and that cairn, a hill there, and there's a little stream in it. I'll be getting my water out of it later. And a while back I actually erected a memorial cairn alongside that stream in memory of Margaret Fry. Any half decent ufologist today will know her name. She was one of the pioneers in the 50s who brought the UFO subject to life. She died last August at the grand old age of 95, and as I say, I erected a little memorial cairn. I'll show that later on here. There's actually a video up on YouTube about it in full. But essentially, the B4391 road runs through there. If I go back to that spot there where the hillside comes down, the anything on this mountainside couldn't be seen until the car passed that ridge line there. So that gives you one line of sight, a parameter of your line of sight. If you follow that road, I'm doing this now while it's daylight, if you follow that road, where are we? There's those top of the conifers there. I might catch a car on it later just to demonstrate it further, but the road goes out of view there, and that's the last chance anyone can see anything on the side of this mountain. So if you draw a line from that point there to the summit of Cader Berwyn, which is behind me here, still over the top of this hill, and a line from that point I mentioned before, it forms a corridor. So that UFO had to have been on the hillside within this corridor. There's no question about that. Pat Evans and the daughters came to a midway point over there. They stopped to have a look at this object on the hillside to my left somewhere. And so I've just stretched my lungs, I'm coughing a bit now. And she went out of sight up there to a little turning place, and then came back, stopped a while there, and then carried on back to Llandderfel that way. So there's no question about that UFO being anywhere else but inside these two parameters. Now then, if I go to there, and the top of that conifer ridge line there, pardon me, behind those trees there is a peak, a ridge peak known as Kevin Cork, and those trees again wouldn't have been there. It's actually been replanted. There's been at least 2 crops on there since 1974, but we had several credible witnesses who were centred on a property called Garthgorch, above Llandderfel, and they're on a certain elevation, and at least 6 people who were present there from 3 different households had a view of this object coming down onto the hillside behind me. Now, they actually said they saw it come down and then it disappeared as if it was sinking into the ground. Well, if you draw a line from Galgoch straight across this way, it runs right through that hillside there, pardon me, called Kevin Koch. So it stands to reason that if the UFO disappeared from their sight, it came down and went out of their line of sight behind that hillside there. So if it disappeared from their sight, it had to have been on this hillside lower than the summit of that for it to disappear from view. And that again cuts out a huge area of hillside where the UFO simply couldn't have been, because it would never have gone out of the sight if it was any higher. So we know that with the parameters of that hill there, the summit of it's over there, and that ridge line there, we know that the UFO was lower than the altitude, the maximum altitude of that hill. As I say, that wipes out a huge chunk of this hillside. And it whittles it down to an area of approximately 900 yards by 700. That it was somewhere on there. And by some remarkable coincidence, when I worked all this out and visited the spot, I'm probably the only Berwyn UFO enthusiast who's actually ever been up here. When you actually visit the spot, it's actually quite flat. I mean, there's no proof this thing was on the ground. It was actually sat on the ground. It could have been hovering off the ground for all we know. But assuming it landed, human logic dictates that it should be on a reasonably flat piece of ground. And most of the ground inside that area I marked out on the map is actually quite flat. So logic dictates perhaps it should have been there. This bit of forestry is being cut down, and got some firewood from that tonight. But that recess in the trees there, there's a sheepfold down there, a corral, and I'm going to pitch up over there. Well, there's cold damp airs in here playing up on me now. It might get quite misty tonight, but if I look down this way, you can see a house down there. That is that's called Blaenau Coombe, and you can obviously see it from here. In fact, where I'm stood now, if someone was in a window in the house, you could probably see me. But of course, as the slope goes up, everything disappears from view. Where the UFO was, it would have been just out of sight for anyone in the house to have seen it. There's another couple of properties below me. One's called Blaenau Pennant, and another one further along is called Ricard D. And neither of those 2 houses have got any view of this hillside. There is an unconfirmed report of soldiers appearing in a farmyard of one of the houses down there about 9:30 on the night. And as I say, it's unconfirmed, because I've got a good idea who the person is, but they don't want to talk, and staying out of my way anyway. But the information was second hand, and I've only decided on the identity of that person based on a little bit of logic. But apparently the story I was given, and it's only anecdotal evidence, so I can't really use it, but I'll mention it anyway, is the fact that these soldiers appeared in the yard and asked to use a landline telephone, because apparently the radios wouldn't work, none of them. As I already knew the UFO was up here, there's a high probability that they went down this path I've just come up to go to the nearest house with a telephone. The soldier apparently made a call and then they all disappeared. That's presumably back up the hillside here, and that would tie in actually with Pat Evans arriving on the scene and seeing what she saw with torchlights approaching this object. And she described them as like little fairy lights zigzagging about. So it fits in. It only takes 20 minutes to get up here. So that's not the nearest house, the one we can see there. Actually, Blaenau Pennant is probably the nearest, but I have reason to believe it was another property further along that the soldiers visited and asked to use the phone. But as I say, that information has yet to be confirmed. I've decided I'm going to pitch my tent on this little promontory. Drops away down there about 30 feet. I just have to remember that drops there when I get out my tent. That's that old sheepfold I mentioned before. And quite a drop down there. But I'll have to pick my way down there because that's my water supply tonight. I imagine the stream will be a bit noisy during the night. One of the things about winter, sounds amplified. I made that mistake in the past. Camping next to streams, it's okay in the summer. The bracken's up and it acts as a good noise shield. I made that mistake years ago, pitched up in a place where there was no noise out the stream hardly in the summer, pitched up in the middle of winter, hardly got any sleep. The bracken made a big difference. That's me set up. Home for the night on Cader Berwyn. Spooky. Well, it's just 7 PM. Absolutely pitch black. Getting a bit cold now as well. I had to put my gloves on. And so it's probably about -3 or 4. And I got a hat on as well. It's very unusual for me. A woolly hat. It's as I say, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to pick my way across the moor in the next sort of 20 minutes or so. I'll have to go gingerly, so I'm only going to go about I don't know, half a mile, but that could take the best part of an hour. So there's no tracks up here, just the odd sheep track. So and it's that big white tussocky grass, which is sort of like fall in between, and also often right in between is full of water and all. It's very wet up on the moor there. It is all year round. So as I say, I'll be setting off in about 20 minutes, and the plan is to pick a spot somewhere where the UFO landed, and just basically sit it out. I've got my flask and a packet of biscuits, so I'll just sit myself down amongst any dead bracken that's there. That usually grows in the drier places, and we'll just sit down for the hell of it and see what happens, which I'm not expecting anything, of course. It's just a token gesture because it's the 23rd. But in 1974, unbeknown to the people all around here, for miles around, it was about to get very exciting. So more anon. I'll climb over this fence now. At least there's no barbed wire on it. Weirdly, Margaret Fry's cairn there. It's not far off 8:30 now, so I'm more or less in position. I found a nice stone to sit on, which is handy because everywhere's soaking wet around here, very boggy. Bright, that light. I shall sit it out now till just after 10 o'clock and just go through the time scale of events that night. And then I'll go and get some shut-eye. Yep. 8:27. Right. It's just turned 8:38. All those years ago, on the 23rd of January 1974, it was a Wednesday night then. At this time, 8:38, the seismology units around the country detected an air tremor centred somewhere about 5,000 metres below the town of Bala was the official stat, but Richard D Hall reckoned that, and someone else looked at the data, in fact the earth tremor was above ground, which is a very interesting result, simply because at 8:38 this earth tremor occurred, but people across the region mentioned a large explosion sound. I often like to think maybe it was some sort of like sonic boom type thing. Well, it's 10:02 there, and around about this time, a few minutes ago perhaps, back in 1974, the Pat Evans and her two daughters would have been arriving on the main road over there, and they would have been greeted with this large light on the hillside. Probably a bit confused as to what they were looking at. I think they realised pretty quickly it wasn't a plane crash. Despite that, they did notice some torchlights zigzagging towards the object. They presumably were a unit of military personnel approaching the object. Although it was obviously ideal for study, as it were. I think the main purpose was actually to shoo it away. They knew it was coming down because it had been coming down several days previously, and there was a high probability that it would come down that night. But also they chose that night, I think, to mount an operation against it, because there was a meteor shower that night, and if anyone saw anything they shouldn't have done, they could just blame it on the meteors. And essentially, to a point, that's what happened. But nonetheless, Pat Evans pulled up for a few minutes, puzzled at what she was looking at, and she drove on by another third of a mile to the what was then the county boundary of Merionethshire, turned round, came back, stopped again for a few minutes, staring at the object, and then she set off home. But I noticed this description she gave of the light zigzagging, and having sort of scrambled about here in the dark with a torch tonight. The ground's wet and it's got that big white tussocky grass growing everywhere, and it's impossible to keep a straight line, and I found myself trying to keep a straight course but zigzagging all over the place, and I can equate to her description. Right, time to gingerly make my way across the boggy ground back to my tent. I imagine I'm only about 1,000 yards from the tent, about half a mile, so 2/3 of a mile, that type of thing. So I can hear the stream in the distance there, and I'll head down to that and then basically follow it down towards the tent. It's I think that's the most direct route now, but there's no paths. You just have to pick your way across the terrain as best I can, like. Right, folks, till the morning. Well, the morning of the 24th of January. I'm just looking at that pile of mist there, just rolling in. A little bit of a pan round there. There's a big bank of mist there over the summit of Cader Berwyn and then circa. and if I pan down a bit further, when the mist takes it out of view, there's the moon up there, nice half moon. It was quite bright, it was cloudy during the night. I popped out the tent for a pee about 3 o'clock, and it was quite bright. We couldn't see the moon. But this is a Cader Berwyn morning.